as promised, everybody, take a listen to the president.
Gave a very inaccurate report. And as you know, certain of the media released information about a man that they said was the whistleblower. I don't know if that's true or not. But what they said is he's an Obama person. It was involved with Brennan, Susan Rice, which means Obama. But he was like a big anti-Trump person, hated Trump. And they said terrible things. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but that was reported by some of the media, so you'll have to find out. I don't know why the media is not on it, because the whistleblower gave a very inaccurate report about my phone call. My phone call was perfecto. It was totally appropriate. But he gave a report, he or she, but according to the newspapers, it's a he. They think they know who it is. You know who it is. You just don't want to report it. CNN knows who it is, but you don't want to report it. And you know, you'd be doing the public a service if you did. The whistleblower gave a false report. And because of that false report, people thought bad things were done. And then you had Schiff go out and speak before Congress and before the American people and give a false story. He made up a story. And then I released, after all this was done, I released. And everybody said he didn't do anything wrong. But the whistleblower should be revealed, because the whistleblower gave false stories. Some people would call it a fraud. I won't go that far, but when I read it closely, I probably would. But the whistleblower should be revealed. Then I want to ask another question of you. Where is the second whistleblower? And why did Schiff make a lie when he said about what I said on the phone call? And why didn't the lieutenant colonel say that he wrote a letter to the White House with certain little comments about the phone call? And all of those many people that listened to the phone call, why didn't they have a problem with it? Because they didn't have. Many people listened to calls between, I know that. But for instance, the Secretary of State Pompeo was on the call. Nobody had, with all of those people, very few people that I know came forward. And they only came forward when you asked. And some of them are never Trumpers. So, but why didn't all of those people listening to this absolutely, totally appropriate phone call, why didn't they come forward? So, you know, it's a whole scam. It's an impeachment scam. And you know what it is? It's between the Democrats and the fake news media.
So what evidence do you have that Colonel Vindman is a never-Trumper?
We'll be showing that to you real soon, okay?
Describe it, sir.
In terms of the African-American community, are you concerned that the possibility of impeachment might hurt your standing in the...
No, I think I have a great standing in the African-American community, because if you look at what we've done, as you know, we have the best unemployment numbers in the history of our country for African-Americans. We have the best poverty numbers. We have the best employment numbers. And I'm doing great. African-American community gets it. And I did criminal justice reform. Nobody else. I did it. Without me, you don't have criminal justice reform. And that was for the African-Americans more than anybody else. So I think my standing in the African-American community is maybe the best. We're going to see. We're going to see in 1 year. But I think that I'm going to get a tremendous percentage of votes from the African American. I did one other thing. I did opportunity zones. And these are neighborhoods that a lot of people wouldn't be investing now because of what I did with Tim Scott and some others. But Tim Scott was fantastic, of South Carolina. We did opportunity zones. It's an incredible thing. So I think we're going to do great with African Americans. We have tremendous African American support. Well, I'll tell you what, there have been stories written about a certain individual, a male, and they say he's the whistleblower. If he's the whistleblower, he has no credibility, because he's a Brennan guy, he's a Susan Rice guy, he's an Obama guy, and he hates Trump, and he's a radical. Now, maybe it's not him, but if it's him, you guys ought to release the information. No, not at all. Not at all.
It's 1 year to election. Are you confident with the election? Are you confident with the Are you confident being re-elected again?
Very confident. Our poll numbers are great. We're doing very well in the polls. And by the way, not that it's very important because you got elected, but the impeachment polls have been very, very strong, and especially in the swing states. I think you see that. The swing states, they don't want to hear about it. And we have polls, people don't want to hear about impeachment. The only one that wants impeachment to talk about it is the fake media and the Democrats, who basically, they work for the media. The way I look at it, the Democrats work for the media.
The Democrats work for the media. That's a heck of a statement to make. The Democrats are supposed to be working for we the people. Did somebody change? Is the media actually writing out checks to various media predominant anchor people to the point that now the media is actually working for, the Democrats are actually working for the media? Is that what's going on here, Mr. President? Some of the statements that this guy makes is far-fetched. And I don't know if he's like an animal that feels like that he's been driven off into a corner or what the deal is, but the fact of the matter is there has been established policies to where if a whistleblower or a informant, a snitch, a narc, a rat, whatever terminology that you want to use, was working in behalf of we the people, that found something that didn't sound just exactly right, or it was odd or off key, or it was just out and out just completely an obstruction, an unethical move by the United States president. That is their jobs, and it's also our jobs to protect these people. That's written in the handbook. He's wanting to change the handbook towards bringing these whistleblowers out into the eyes of the general public. And unless the whistleblower wants to actually come out into the eyes of the general public, the whistleblower has a right of remaining very, very secretive in he or she in their affairs towards doing their jobs. Once more, the system is set up with checks and balances to make sure that somebody can't get in office and just do whatever they want to do and act like some sort of a tyrant. That's the whole purpose for having these different advancements set up to where we're not going to allow for a tyrant to come into the presidency, the seat of the presidency, and basically take advantage of either we the people or the allies of the people. And I'm pretty sure that if they didn't feel like that they had good, substantial, 100% proof, they wouldn't be bringing this all out into the eyes of the general public in the degree that they're bringing it out, because this is going to cause an embarrassment, an open embarrassment in the eyes of the people to somebody. If the Democrats are wrong towards not having substantial proof, then they'll be shamed. They'll be shamed probably off of their jobs and off of the positions that they presently hold. In other words, there'll be people that will mock them and openly shame them to the point of not voting for these people, not even considering putting them back in office. But if they're right and this guy's wrong, the shame will fall upon the feet of this guy instead of the fault of the Democrats. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to step out with something this substantial if they do not have proof validating these type of charges. Once more, Mr. President, these people are doing their jobs. It is written in the handbook that they don't have to step forth and identify themselves if they don't want to. They're scared to death of you. They're scared not only are you going to openly shame the whistleblower or the whistleblowers, regardless whether it's a male or female or more than one, but they're scared that you may actually put some sort of a contract out on them. People have become frightened of you. They don't know what you're going to do. They don't know what you're going to say. You're a loose cannon. And for some strange reason, you don't see that. For some strange reason, you don't see that you have become a national security threat to your very own party that you're supposed to be supporting and being behind. It was we the people that put you in office. You didn't just step into this. You didn't just decide one day that I'm going to become president of the United States and I'm going to walk up and I'm going to throw my name in the hat and they're going to do a random pulling, and all of a sudden you come up towards being the president. You was voted into this position that you now presently hold. And there's certain requirements that go along with this. There are certain responsibilities that goes along with this. There's certain entitlements that go along with this. And whenever you violate either or, that's whenever various policies with people working in these positions will raise a red flag and say, wait a minute, this guy here, he stepped out of line. They done the exact same thing to Nixon in 74. They done the exact same thing. Why the proceedings wasn't handled properly during the assassination of JFK, I don't know. I can't answer that. Back then, that was a completely different group of people. Back then, the policies probably was just beginning to be introduced towards what that they should have done versus what they shouldn't have done. And I'm pretty sure that JFK was assassinated because of something that he either done or something that his brother done or something that he chose not to do that he should have done, but he didn't do it. I don't know for sure what happened during that time because I was just a child myself. I was born in 1961. When was Kennedy assassinated? 1963, 1964. So I wasn't but about three or 4 years old. I still vividly remember it because it stayed so long on the news, but so also did the Vietnam War. I do remember seeing up in Chicago, outside of Chicago, up towards Antioch and Round Lake, day after day after day after day after day of nothing but bloodshed pertaining to the Vietnam War. And I do believe that it was one of the first actual wars that was documented in such of a way. And I personally feel like that was probably one reason why that the general public over here in America turned against the war, because they seen so much bloodshed. They seen stuff that the general public shouldn't have never had to have seen. And they know that whenever they was watching this, that it wasn't something that was engineered up in Hollywood, that they was actually seeing the real deal whenever people was being mutilated right in front of their very eyes, and it got broadcasted over here in America. It had a profound effect upon people's attitudes about that war. Once more, we was dealing with a completely different set of characteristics back then in the early 60s and throughout the 70s pertaining to all this. Why they done what they done to JFK, I'm sure it was an inside job. I'm sure it had something to do with the political parties that now are probably, most of them are dead and gone. pertaining to that hit job down in Dallas, Texas. You know, if you think about it, it was George Walter Sr., Bush, old man Bush, that was working for Secret Service at the time, that was on the beat down in Dallas, Texas, the day that JFK got assassinated. And some people draw straws and say that that was the connection pertaining to the Saudi Arabian government, pertaining to all the oil, pertaining to Mr. Bush's father that already had established affairs with the Saudis, pertaining to the oil market, the big money market over in Saudi Arabia. I'm pretty sure that somewhere down the line, those dots probably match. But right now we're talking about this. We're talking about what's going on in November the 3rd, 2019 in the 21st century pertaining to this particular president. We're not talking about 4, 5, 6 centuries away. We're talking about what's going on today. And this guy here, for some reason or another, I don't know if he thinks that the people are just so naive that we're not going to be able to see through what is going on, or if he himself thinks that he can use the big mic in conforming our way of thinking, basically brainwashing the people. But whenever he makes statements that he makes, which to me questions his mental mentality, whenever he makes statements that the Democrats are working for the media. In other words, the media is actually sending out checks. The media is running the country. The media is sending out checks to the Democrats because they're on their payroll. Is that what he just said? Is that what the President of the United States just said? Let's back this up. Back it up. Back it up. Stop.
Then we have polls. People don't want to hear about impeachment. The only one that wants impeachment to talk about it is the fake media and the Democrats, who basically, they work for the media. The way I look at it, the Democrats work for the media.
Democrats work for the media. In other words, they're drawing a salary. And it's the media that's in control of the Democrats versus the Democrats that's in control of the media. I'm not going to buy that. Unless there's something going on in this country that I'm not aware of, I'm not going to buy that, Mr. President. Neither nor am I going to buy that you didn't say something that was inappropriate that you was going to use for your own personal gain of calling out a foreign dictator of doing your dirty work for you towards trying to bring dirt on your opponent. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the people may have been born at night, but they wasn't born last night, and I'm thinking that they may be able to see through all this. And whenever you get up and spew out false innuendos, it speaks volumes, Mr. President, towards who you are, what you're about, what you're made of, what your intent has been all along. Because if you can't be truthful with the American people and with the world, who's going to trust you? Who's going to put their you-know-what on the line for somebody that is a radical, somebody who is unstable, and somebody who basically takes truths and twists them to his behalf towards turning them into lies? Who's going to trust you if there was a national emergency and you commanded for everybody that has the nuclear codes to open up their briefcases and start firing up onto our adversary? Who is going to trust you? You talk about credibility issues, Mr. President. How about your credibility? If you gave the order today because you felt like the American people was fixing to be disintegrated because of an enemy, an adversary, and you was going to get them before they got us. You was going to take out the adversary before the adversary could take us out. And you gave the order, open your suitcases, put in the launch codes, and activate the nuclear bombs immediately. Would they follow your instructions, Mr. President, under the leadership of what people have heard and seen coming from you and coming from your administration? That's the $64,000 question that I would like to know. Because to be quite frank with you, if I had access to that suitcase, and unless somebody was standing there with a gun fixing to shoot me, fixing to blow me to smithereens, I would question whether or not I needed to follow this order or not. Because of your credibility, Mr. President. And this isn't something that the Democrats has been paid by the media to say. Nobody's paying me for me to voice my opinion right now. I'm not working for some sort of advertising agency. A matter of fact, they've done everything to me that basically they can do to me other than actually killing me, in which if they killed me, it would actually be a blessing. But they've done everything in the world to me right here in my own home state and my own home county, pertaining to taking my rights away to the degree that I can't even vote. So, in essence, I have no biased feelings at this particular point in time, either the A or nay, either for the Republicans or the Democrats. What I'm looking at is the fairness of truth for the betterment of the good, for the people, for the world. So I'm not biased one way or the other. Nobody's paying me. I don't have no certain particular party that I'm trying to uphold or withhold or bring to the forefront towards them being right. All I'm doing is looking at the evidence of some of the stuff that you have said, how that you've said it, the frame of mind that you're in. Just like you spewing off things right now about the Democrats working for the media. It's just absolutely absurd of some of the things that you say. And because of it, if there was ever a national emergency, this is the part that frightens me. This frightens me. And it don't frighten me because of me. It frightens me because of the future of our children and our children's children and our future as a nation, the survival of a nation. But if there was a national emergency, because of your lack of ability to prove to the world pertaining to your credibility, would people who have access to those suitcases follow under your command, follow under your orders, if you was to give out an order to say, open up the briefcases, enact the codes, we're fixing to take out somebody before they take out us? In the meantime, while all these people are sitting there scratching their heads saying, gee, I don't know if we should do this or not. Should we really listen to this man? Because we know he's spewed off lies and he said this and said that, and his credibility's been shot pertaining to him being honest with the American people. In the meantime, what if it really was a national emergency? What if it wasn't just someone crying wolf? What if we was at the brink of our own existence as American citizens within minutes or even seconds towards going through one of the most cruelest, distinctions of a civilization has ever known. And because of the lack of minutes or even seconds, it jeopardizes our safety and it jeopardizes our well-being. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. This man was given a great responsibility. And there's no doubt, whenever he went into power, the country was turned upside down already because of various administrations that has been in power before him. So this just didn't begin with him. Okay? Let's kind of tread the water and look at reality here for a second. It just didn't begin with him. So we're all in agreement with that. But we're also, I think, in agreement in believing that instead of this man making things better for the betterment of the good, the will of the people, he's making things worse. He's exacerbating the problem. Not only the international debt that we owe now, I guess, $23 trillion on, but on other foreign affairs pertaining to standing up for our allies, the people that we've already made commitments to, similar towards the way that he has turned his back on Syria, the Kurds over there, towards walking away from them. It's not just one particular telephone call that has raised a red flag to this man's abilities to lead and to govern. It's all of it from the get-go towards the way that he approaches things and what he says and how he don't mind offending people and calling slums out and ridiculing people and using some of the vain rhetoric that he uses is just, I've never heard a president like this. I'm 59, soon to be 59 years old, and I've never heard a president get on national TV and say and do some of the things that he does. It's agitating, and it's reached a point of uncertainty to the degree that it's went beyond frustrating. It's almost become terrifying. Because as I have said before, whenever this man gets on national TV, you don't know what he's going to say. And some of our intel, our national intel, pertaining to NSI, CIA, various people that's in control of various affairs that goes on in other parts of the world, they literally cringe. They cringe whenever this man gets on TV because he's undisciplined. You don't know what he's going to spew out of his mouth next. So let's listen to the rest of this and hope to God he won't create a national emergency. Because if he does, listen to me, if he does, I don't know that he can be trusted. That's the part that I think others are trying to make to the American people. We don't know if he can be trusted because you got to look at his credibility in some of the things that he says and how that he says it. Just like the Democrats working for the media. Come on. You're telling me that they get a check every week? That they're employed by the media? NBC, CBS, CNN, the New York Times is paying these politicians paying. If you're a Democrat, you can expect a new check now being handed out to you, or maybe you got it set up on automatic deal to where it electronically gets put into your account every month or every week. Automatic deposit. So we can look forward to these exchanges happening, are already done, already has, according to this president. It's becoming frightening. It really is. On a national security level, it has become frightening to hear some of the things that this man spews out of his mouth.
Yeah, there's progress, and first I want to get the deal. I mean, the meeting place to me is going to be pretty easy, but first we'll see if we get the deal. And if we get the deal, the meeting place will come very easily. It'll be someplace in the U.S.
Mr. President, according to several recent polls, more Americans want you to be impeached and removed from office than the number of Americans who don't.
You're reading the wrong polls.
You're reading NBC,
let me just tell you.
ABC, Washington Post.
I have the real polls. I have the real polls. The CNN polls are fake. The Fox polls have always been lousy. I tell them they ought to get themselves a new pollster. But the real polls, if you look at the polls that came out this morning, people don't want anything to do with impeachment. It's a phony scam. It's a hoax. And the whistleblower should be revealed because the whistleblower gave false information. What?
Do you still have confidence in Mick Mulvaney?
Well, he's working. As long as he's with me, I have confidence.
Hey, do you side with Boris Johnson or Nigel Farage if you have to choose?
I like them both. Look, I think Boris is the right man for the times. He's really for the times. He's a great gentleman. He's a wonderful guy. He's tough. He's smart. And I think he's going to do something. I just hope he does it so the U.S., which is by far the biggest economy in the world, not even close. Since I took office, we picked up trillions of dollars. Trillions. And frankly, China has lost trillions of dollars, as you very well know. We're far and away the #1 economy in the world. And if you do it a certain way, we're prohibited from trading with the UK. That would be very bad for the UK because we can do much more business than the European Union. So I think Boris will get it right. They're both friends of mine. What I'd like to see is for Nigel and Boris to come together. I think that's a possibility for us.
How strong is your support for Ukraine in their conflict with Russia? Have you ever told Putin to get out of Ukraine?
My support is very good. My relationship with Ukraine is very good. My relationship with Russia is very good. My relationship with China is very good.
How can your relationship with the Ukrainian government be good, but at the same time, your relationship with one of a known dictator by the name of Putin that has slaughtered, God only knows, how many Ukrainians over their resistance against communists and probably his own people, the way that I understand it, talking about Mr. Putin. How can you be friends of both? See, that's the part there that just don't jive. Because in order for you to be friends with one, you almost have to sacrifice the other. And if we're supposed to be dealing with a free, open, fair democracy, we know that Mr. Putin does not support a free, open, fair democracy. He gives out false readings throughout his own party whenever they supposedly have elections. But we know that there's people over there right now that are protesting about the way that the government is being run in Russia that are probably, right now, as I'm sitting here speaking, sacrificing their very own lives for the same type of freedom that our ancestors sacrificed their lives for. So how can you be both? How can you be friends with some of these people that we know are cruel, tyrant, communist, thinking, controlled people, and at the same time tell us that you're friends with others? It's contradicting of itself. It's non-productive. And that's the part there that other people are beginning to scratch their heads on and open their eyes to, towards saying, so what is really going on here? What is really happening here? Christ said, "He that is with me cannot be against me. For either you is for or against the teachings of what Jesus taught." There was no middle ground. There was no gray areas. There was no give or take towards being lukewarm. A matter of fact, that's the very thing that God, working through John the Revelator in his visions, spoke about in the first 4 chapters of Revelations, that God literally hates cowards. He hates liars. He hates people that does this. He hates people that does that. And in that same concept, where God was talking about the things that he dislikes or hates, he made mention towards hating the lukewarmers, the ones that are straddling the fence, that want just a little bit of religion, just enough to get by, but at the same time, they're living a life of darkness. They're living a life of hypocrisy. They're living a life of being nothing but a bunch of hypocrites. God hates those people. And he said that he would spew them from his mouth because of the bitterness that he hates of those type of people. Just like it says in the first 4 chapters of Revelations that he hates the Nicolaitans, and he hates the barbaric, heathenistic people over in the Middle East pertaining to Balaam and Balak, pertaining to those who profess to be Jews and are not. Because God's chosen people is pertaining to not just an ethnic group, but a matching DNA group. And if you don't have the right DNA, you can profess day after day that you're a Jew, but unless you've got that bloodline, you're actuality not a true Jew. You may be a conformed or a what's the right word? Hybrid. That ain't the right word. Adopted. You may be an adopted Jew as far as going into the colony and calling yourself a Jew, but that doesn't mean that you're a true Jew. I don't know if you realize this or not, Mr. President, but anybody, just no one in particular, can walk up to the Cherokee tribe and all of a sudden become on their roll book towards becoming a known Cherokee. The only way that you can do that is that you have to have a certain percentage of a quality in your blood to be on the roll book. And if you don't have that, you're automatically dismissed. And even if you do have that certain quality, you still got to go through certain loopholes before the tribe actually accepts you into their circle. Because just because you have the right quality of blood doesn't necessarily mean that you're still going to be invited are accepted into the tribe. In other words, you got to have both. You got to have both. And the two become one. And then the Native American people will accept you as a true Native American. And I'm sure it's the same way with the Jewish colony or the Jewish tribal people over there, that particular tribe. That in order for you to become a true Jew, not only do you have to be accepted because of your bloodline, but you have to be accepted through the colony, through the tribe. You got to have both to actually be a true Jew. And that's the reason why God, in the first 4 chapters of Revelations, speaks about those that profess to be Jews, because I've met them. I've been around them. Those that think that they have the anointing on their foreheads because they supposedly are Jewish descent. And if the truth be known, they ain't a bit more Jewish descent than what I am. I mean, just because I use the name Jew be doesn't make me a Jew. Now, I have been engrafted through the kingdom, through the heavenly kingdom, because of me accepting Jesus Christ into my life and living out the life that Christ expects for me to live, towards the sincerity and the authenticity of not only my feelings for God's only begotten Son, but towards his feelings towards people like me. It's a two-way street based around sincerity. And that's the reason why it's going to be God and God alone that either says, "Depart from me, for I've never known thee," or it's going to be God and God alone. It's going to say, "Depart from me, for I've never known thee." Now, on that particular issue, it doesn't matter what type of blood that you got. It doesn't matter what color skin that you got. It doesn't matter what nationality that you come from. It doesn't matter if you're smart, not smart. It doesn't matter if you're from America or Russia or China. It doesn't matter if you got a lot of money or no money. It doesn't matter if you're sick or well or young or old. That's a completely different concept and a completely different set of dynamics in comparison to what I'm talking about as far as the Jews and what I'm talking about pertaining to your qualifications, Mr. President. Your qualifications pertaining to your credibility. That frightens me, not because of me, but because of the world in general. The children and the children's children, their future. It frightens me because whenever you spew off these things that we know are not true, we know that the Democrats are not working for the media, but yet now you get up there and you spew it. It makes us wonder, what the heck is this guy trying to, what are you trying to pull over on us? Like I said a while ago, we was born at night, but it was not last night. We're smarter than this, Mr. President. We know that the Democrat Party does not work for NBC or CBS or ABC. The New York Times does not write out a check to the Democrat Party or the LA Times or some of the other big newspaper agencies or media agencies. So the things that you get up there and you talk about, you're actually making a fool out of yourself. Please stop and listen to some of the things that some of the people are talking to you about. Please do not continue to dig your hole deeper, because you're only embarrassing not only yourself, but you're embarrassing those around you. Please reevaluate yourself before it is a very, very shameful experience that you're fixing to have to go through. Please. Maybe your best alternative motive is to declare insanity, a sickness. Maybe you got a tumor on the brain. Maybe something else has occurred towards a light stroke or something. I don't know. But this is becoming obvious to not only the American people, but the world, towards what we're actually having to deal with here. And it's not funny. A matter of fact, it's kind of scary. Whenever you have somebody that's incapable of making rational decisions during the time that they need to be made, if there was a national emergency like I was talking about.
I don't understand. I get along, but nobody's going to mess with me.
The John Durham investigation?
The John Durham investigation is moving along. That's up to Attorney General Barr, highly respected. John Durham is one of the most respected prosecutors in the last 50 years in this country. And I let them do their thing. It's Bill Barr and John Durham. And what they come up with will, I think, be very meaningful. We'll see what happens. I do not get involved with it. That's up to them. And by the way, I'd be allowed to get involved with it if I wanted to. But I chose not to. It's up to Bill Barr. But the John Durham investigation is a very important, I feel, one of the most important investigations in the history of our country. Okay?
Do you have a date or a venue for
No,
your
we
meeting?
don't, but it could happen. Something like that could happen. I know they'd like to meet, and something like that could happen.
House Republicans call for public testimony.
I think that the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans have been incredible. I don't think there's ever been unity like we have right now. We had 195 or so votes. We didn't have one negative vote. The only one that had negative votes on the whole impeachment scam were the Democrats. I think Nancy Pelosi has lost her mind, and I think, frankly, that she should go back home to San Francisco. If you look at what's happening to her district is going to hell with homeless, with that they're not taking care of, with needles all over the street, with tents, with people, with sanitation, with horrible things being washed into the ocean, into the Pacific Ocean. I think Nancy Pelosi, her district has probably gone down more than any district proportionately in the United States. And what she's done for that district, and then on top of it, you got fires eating away at California every year because management is so bad. The governor doesn't know. He's like a child. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I've been telling this for 2 years. They've got to take care of it. Every year, it's always California. It's rarely somebody else or someplace else. But Nancy Pelosi ought to go back to her district and take care of it because her district has become a mess. #1 in the country for going down. All she thinks about is impeachment. But she doesn't want to impeach. You know who wants to impeach? The people that run the party, the radical left.
Mr. President, why don't you want John Bolton to testify, sir? And if so, do you
It's
have...
up to him and up to the lawyers. It's really up to the lawyers. I like John Bolton. I always got along with him. But that's going to be up to the lawyers.
I don't think you were concerned.
You said no quid pro quo. The thing is that in the transcript, it says I
Read
have
the
a favor to
transcript.
ask you so.
Read the transcript.
But it says I have no favor
Read the
to ask you
transcript.
so.
What about a government shutdown? There's a genuine concern. Democrats believe that you will hold up funding for the government because you're so upset about impeachment. Is that something that could be a possibility, Tom? What do you think?
I don't think they believe that at all. But we'll see what happens. The Democrats I call them the do-nothing Democrats. They're doing nothing. They're not getting USMCA done. Everybody wants it. Even the Democrats want it. They're not getting anything done. Even guns, they don't talk about guns. They don't talk. All they can do is talk about one phone call made to the president of Ukraine. That was perfect. It was perfect.
It's not about one telephone call, Mr. President. I just got through listening to one of our Tennessee representatives down in Memphis, Tennessee. You need to back up and listen to what he said this morning on MSNBC. Listen to some of the statements that some of the people are talking about pertaining to your radical behavior and your radical thinking. There's no doubt California's bad. There's no doubt. And it needs to have a revival. People need to change their lifestyles in California, and that could be one reason why that we're seeing all these horrendous fires out there. Because as far as I'm concerned, Mother Nature will cry out according to the affairs of the people. And the more that the people become erratical, the more that the weather becomes erratical. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. And it's our Heavenly Father that feeds us. He feeds us through adequate rains, through adequate winters, through adequate summers, through adequate this and adequate that. And whenever those things become unbalanced, according to the Bible, it says that all these are the beginnings of the, what did it say? Sorrows. It sorrows God to see all the sin that's being conducted out in California. It does not please him. It sorrows him. Okay? That's the reason why that things are becoming so unhinged out in California pertaining to the fires year after year after year after year. That's the reason why that we're seeing the radical environmental changes pertaining to global warming. It's because there's more sinful people in the world than there are godly people in the world. Whenever mankind finally wakes up, providing that they do wake up, then things will readjust themselves. But until then, we can expect more radical weather, unbalanced behaviors. Because it's God, the one that's in favor of the winds. It's God that's in favor of the rains. It's God that's in favor of all the elements that we have to be around and breathe and be part of. It's not Nancy Pelosi. These things didn't just occur overnight pertaining to her district. There was crackheads and drug addicts way before Nancy Pelosi ever become in power. This has been an ongoing thing that has creeped up on society. It has escalated. It has snowballed. And now we're dealing what we're dealing with. But we're also dealing with you towards making these radical, unprofessional comments that you're making to the rest of the world. You're just not making these comments to somebody that's speaking across the room, or you're talking to somebody at a restaurant somewhere. You're making these comments to the world, Mr. President, to the world.
It was a perfect phone call, and they're hanging their hat on this one phone call. And you know
it's
what?
Not just the one
The
phone
Republican
call.
Party has never been so unified.
Sir, will you mount a defense? Will you mount a defense, sir?
They've never been so unified.
Can you commit to no government shutdown? I mean, can you, people that are concerned,
It depends on what the negotiation. I wouldn't commit to anything. It depends on what the negotiation.
Sir, will you mount a defense at the impeachment inquiry?
Okay, everybody, there you see at the top of the hour the president walking away after a freewheeling discussion with reporters there on the White House South Lawn upon his arrival home from New York City, where he spent last night. I'm going to bring back in Nelson Cunningham right now, of course, one of our legal analysts, former federal prosecutor, and also, Nelson, in your role as a special advisor to President Clinton in the Western Hemisphere for national security. So I know that you were shaking your head at the top of that discussion and those questions that were being peppered of the president. Why were you shaking your head at what he was saying about the whistleblower and that which has come in terms of testimony since about that phone call?
Yeah, because as a matter of proof, the whistleblower is not part of the evidence against the president. The whistleblower gave us a roadmap. He said there was a phone call. He said there were some exchanges before the phone call. There was military aid that was withheld. There were exchanges after the phone call. And everything that's been done since we've learned about the whistleblower's report and what's in it has panned out. We've seen there was a phone call. We've now seen the transcript. There were exchanges. There was military aid withheld. There were discussions about Rudy Giuliani and Sunland with the Ukrainians about this. Think about the whistleblower's report as like the 911 call that says, hey, somebody is breaking into a building. Police get the call. They go running to the building. What do they find? People breaking into the building. Does the identity of the 911 caller make a difference? No. Does any bias the 911 caller make a difference? No. What matters is the underlying evidence. And here it's all panned out. So who the whistleblower is, what bias the whistleblower may have, really becomes irrelevant. Look at the transcript and look at the testimony of the other career officials who come forward.
I'll tell you, that 911 call is a very excellent analogy. Nelson, thank you for that. Introducing for all of you right now, Philippe Reines, former spokesman for Hillary Clinton, co-host of the podcast Unredacted, and Republican political consultant Shermichael Singleton. Guys, I'm going to ask you to stand by right now because we heard Kelly O'Donnell. She was asking the president about John Bolton and that scrum that just happened. Kelly's going to join me right now from the White House. Kelly, what all did you pick up from the president there?
Well, there were some notable things about this exchange. First of all, it's unusual for the president, just in his normal practice, to speak to us as collected reporters on the South Lawn when he's returning. So it was something that we had not expected he would do. And so he clearly had things he wanted to say.
Right.
And that's important to just put that in perspective, that typically he would walk in, typically talks only when he's leaving. So that stands out. And what he had to say today was to revive his attacks on the whistleblower, asking for that person to be exposed, questioning that person's loyalty, also asking about a second whistleblower, which we all reported about, an individual who also spoke with the committee and got those whistleblower protections, but much less is known about that individual. And then he raised the questions about Alexander Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel, active duty, decorated veteran, who is still working as a part of the National Security Council as the top Ukraine official. And the president referenced Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, saying that he had written some notes in the margin of some document. I had spoken to the president about Vindman last night. He had tweeted about him being a never-Trumper without naming him. And that, of course, from the president's point of view, is a sharp pejorative. And so last night, the president engaged on that. And so today I asked him as well about what evidence do you have? And I think in a very notable moment here, he says, we're going to be showing you that. So the president is suggesting that he would have, now remember, he's commander-in-chief. We're talking about someone who's a White House aide and an active duty member of the Army and an officer. He's suggesting that he's going to put forward something that could discredit the point of view of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. Now, in contrast, Kellyanne Conway says she would never question Vindman's patriotism, but does disagree with his assessment of these events. So those things are notable. The president trying to use those who brought this accusation against him as a part of his defense. I did ask him about John Bolton, his former national security advisor, who is...
In other words, it sounds to me like that we're fixing to walk off. We're fixing to walk off into a mudslinging contest, and now the president is fixing to try to find whatever that he can find against this person to discredit his character pertaining to his testimony. And once more, what difference does it make whether or not you are a no-time Trump supporter or you was a Trump supporter at one time and you decided to drop your support? What difference does it make? It's similar to the metaphor that they just got through talking about as far as a 911 caller. It doesn't matter if they're smart, dumb, white, black, green, yellow, rich, poor. If the 911 call went out that there's somebody breaking into somebody's home or somebody's business, and once the cops get there and they realize that the business or the home's being broke into, that is substantial enough proof as far as their credibility that the call was authentic. It don't matter who the call come from. This guy, he's out of his league. He's trying to manipulate the people and manipulate the government, in which I was one of the first ones that stood up pertaining to some of the things that he run on, it pertaining to the government being rigged, as far as it's basically a cherry picking contest towards, it's not what you know but who you know, towards whether or not you get an easy sentence or a hard sentence. I still support that theory or those facts. Some of the other things that he's done, I've stood with him on. But this stuff now that he's coming out with, he's out of his league. He's throwing stuff out there that is going to come back and haunt him severely in his presidency, that may very well cost him his presidency, especially whenever you're in some sort of a mode towards wanting to just bring up any and everything about other people's credibility. If you're looking for a perfect person, my theory is, if you're looking for a perfect person, don't be looking at me, because I'm the furthest from perfect. A matter of fact, that's the reason why that I was smart enough to identify the sins that I had in my own life, to the point that I went to a Savior and I asked for forgiveness because of my imperfections, because of my shortcomings, because of the sin and the sinful nature that even to this day I still struggle with a great deal of things about. If you're looking for someone that can walk on water, Mr. President, do not look my way, because I have yet to be able to modify that particular entity in my life towards being able to walk on water. As far as I know, there was only one human being that was qualified in doing that has ever come upon to this planet. And it sure wasn't me, and it's sure not going to be the person that you're talking about towards going to dig up dirt on, and it's sure not going to be you. As a matter of fact, it's not going to be none of us. It's absolutely not going to be none of us. But whenever it reaches the point of uncertainty, that people question the authenticity of your leadership, of what would happen if there was either a natural or a national crisis upon this planet, how would you respond? What would occur if you gave out certain orders? What would happen to we the people? What would happen to us as a whole, as a unit? What would happen to us as a nation? That's the things that people are starting to ask certain questions about. Of course, you're always going to have a certain amount of people out there that don't care. They don't care one way or the other, because they're just kind of floaters to begin with. They'll float from this experience to that experience, and they're going over here. And if they make it, that's okay. And if they don't, that's, in a way, it's probably okay too. But they're just kind of drifters. They drift from one experience to another. They drift from one occurrence to another. They really don't have no established way of life about themselves. They're almost like peasants, like hobos or bums or tramps. They really don't have no good, sound, fundamental values about themselves. You got lots of people out there that could care less if the sun come up in the morning. They could care less if a meteor come blankly out of the universe and hit directly in the center of the United States. They could care less. But then you got other people that do care. They care about their own lives. They care about their own prosperity. They care about their children and their children's children. And these are the people that I'm talking about, that's becoming worried about some of the things that you say and how you say it, and your credibility. That if there was some sort of a man-made national, international emergency, how would you handle it for our sakes, for the benefit of we the people? That's the part there that's beginning to become worrisome. Worrisome to the American people and the rest of the world. And for some reason, you can't see that. You can't understand that. You know, whenever you're the only one, when everybody else is wrong and you're the only one that's right, sometimes you need to stop and evaluate what you're talking about and what you're saying, especially if it's being weighed out amongst the public. I realize occasionally the public can be wrong, but they're not going to be wrong all the time pertaining to all the people. And this is one of those times, Mr. President, that I truly believe we, the people, are not wrong. You need to stop. You need to look in the mirror. You need to listen to some of your critics. You need to evaluate your posture. You need to listen to some of the things that you talk about and how that you present them to the general public, because they're really not sensible. We've reached a sad state in American history that's become frightening in ways such as my 59 years that I've never seen before, soon to be 59.
That could discredit the point of view of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. Now, in contrast, Kellyanne Conway says she would never question Vindman's patriotism, but does disagree with his assessment of these events. So those things are notable. The president trying to use those who brought this accusation against him as a part of his defense. I did ask him about John Bolton, his former national security advisor, who is scheduled to appear before the committee this week, and it's a big question mark as to whether he will appear. The president saying that's up to the lawyers, and he said he always got along well with Bolton, but that is not his decision to make. Of course, it is the White House's decision to make if they're going to ask certain principals, like a former national security advisor, to honor executive privilege. So there's a question mark there. I also pressed the president a few times, and he did not engage on the matter of whether he will launch a defense in the impeachment inquiry, which is one of the things the Democrats codified with their resolution, allowing the president to call his own witnesses or Republicans on his behalf and to have legal counsel present.
He don't think he needs one. He don't think he needs a defense. He's speaking for himself. That's one of the primary things that our courts allow, that if you cannot afford a defense will be appointed for you. And the reason why that they do this is because most people, and generally speaking, are not that familiar with various tactics and various laws. And if you don't watch, whenever you get in front of a judge or you get in front of a jury, if you don't watch, you'll actually cut off your own nose to despite your face, and instead of you helping yourself, in actuality, you actually hurt yourself. Because you're up there trying to defend yourself, and by you defending yourself, you're actually bringing more transparency about yourself. And of course, if you're in a mindset like this man is pertaining to Donald Trump, that thinks that he's the only guy in the room that's right, it speaks volumes about his narcissism of this type of, I'm going to use the word disease. This type of disease that the rest of the people can see, but he can't. So whenever you ask the question, is he going to be building a defense? He thinks that his own personal defense is his best defense. Now that's my opinion, and it didn't cost you a thing. Once more, I'm not getting paid to say these things. No one is leaning for or against what my opinion is. This is my opinion about what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling. And it's not being biased. It's not being influenced one way or the other by one party or the other. This is the way that I see it. Now, rather not the general public that gets a hold of this material pertaining to my platform, my YouTube platform, rather not they see it the same way that I see it, may be a completely different call. Because once more, they got a right to think and to have their own opinion. But the way that I see it is that he's digging a hole for himself. He's digging a hole for himself, and he ain't smart enough to identify that the hole that he's digging, he continues to keep digging. Because the things that are spewing out of the man's mouth. Thank you. Good luck to my viewers. Good luck to all of us who are seeking divine righteousness and truth in not only America but throughout the world. Good luck and shalom. Thank you.